Hi, everybody. I'm home in something of a preemptive quarantine just to enable my husband to go and teach in a physical location. He's also a Zen teacher. And so I'm sorry I'm not able to be at VIDA, but it's nice to be able to offer something during this time. I had developed a slide presentation for another group on compassion and self-compassion, and I thought I would share that just as a way to frame our conversation and practice today. I'll just go through it really quickly because I can. I can share my screen. So understanding our place in the midst of compassion, self-compassion is really important, and we'll do a self-compassion practice today. Quick definition of what compassion actually is. It's encountering pain and suffering is the first part, and a required part. Like we actually have to have pain or suffering before compassion arises. It's part of what it's made of. But the other part is this urge or this action to alleviate that suffering. And sometimes it just arises quite naturally, but we can also cultivate it, this urge or action to alleviate suffering. And that is not just in others, although we might encounter that a little more naturally or without as much effort, but we can also experience compassion towards ourselves, and that's what our practice will be about today. A little more on this, that compassion requires that we get in touch with what hurts. It is the pain, it is the suffering itself that invites compassion to manifest. So it is a tall order, but it's an important practice. And that's from a book called The 5 Invitations, which is fantastic, by Frank Ostazeski, I think is his name. The intelligence of compassion brings forward a kindness. It is not trying to rid you of suffering. This goes counter to the ego's wishes. Ego only wants to be protected from pain. Compassion opens to pain. So again, this is just sort of underlining the role of pain or suffering. We're not trying to get rid of it. We're including it in this way, that a mother attends to the pain of her child. There's an openness, there's a willingness to try to alleviate it in that way. But first, it needs to be acknowledged and held in this way. Kindness naturally arises. So I want to show you these next pictures. These are demonstrations of empathy by children, and even these babies can demonstrate empathy and care to each other. They see suffering in another being and are moved to comfort, are moved to alleviate that suffering. Even these little infants. So I share this to just underline the fact that this is innate in us as human beings. There's nothing we actually even have to do to make this happen. We already have it. It's just a matter of uncovering it. If we've learned some other habits. Let me go ahead and put in my headphones. It might be easier to hear me too. So today we're going to do a self-compassion break. And the components of that are 3. The first is mindful awareness, whether that's, wow, I'm having a really hard time. And, can I just mention, this is a really hard time. It's kind of why we're talking about self-compassion right now. Whether you're having an inner critic attack or whatever it is, just stopping, naming it, knowing it is really important is the first part. The next part about self-compassion I think is really cool, and that is a connection with common humanity. Everybody deals with this in some way, shape, or form. This is something that everybody has felt at some point, or maybe is feeling too. I know that with our various stressors that are happening right now, the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, uprising, and the violence against people of color, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and the uncertainty and scariness around our government. There's a lot of us who are not doing well, a lot. And so it's okay if you're not okay. Everybody is feeling some of this, and some people more than others. Some groups of people more than others are more vulnerable. So it's important to know that we're not alone. And so with that, putting ourselves in the middle of it all is a really important part. Finally, self-kindness. What would I say to a friend, or what would I say to a child? How would I treat someone if I was treating them with kindness? That's the third part. That's the action part of it. So self-kindness can sometimes feel cheesy to people, can sometimes feel a little uncomfortable, or we can have a reluctance. It goes against all our training. We might have a thought or a reaction that, oh, this is selfish, I shouldn't be doing this. So there might be some discomfort involved in this, but I encourage you to really just explore that edge. And, don't push yourself, don't do anything that doesn't feel comfortable or right for you, but you might just notice that the learning edge is just outside our comfort zone usually. So you get to work with that in whatever way it feels right for you. But here are some ways to work with self-kindness. And these are take-home practices too. You can put one hand on top of the other on your heart. This already feels good. My hands are always kind of cold. They say, cold hands, warm heart. But it's definitely warmer. My hands are over my heart. And it does feel pretty comforting. Now, some people, this feels, unnatural or whatever, but you can just try it and see what happens if this is okay. This is one gesture that can be soothing. You could also place one hand on the heart, one on the belly. Again, not for everybody. Some people have a lot of reactivity around the belly, and maybe we've been taught or trained that it's not okay. So if you choose to, address that, or, go forward with that, being kind to yourself, and even just rubbing the belly with both hands can be really comforting for some people. And again, you don't have to do all these things, but they're not right for you. You can place the hands on the face very kindly, very gently. That can be a very comforting activity. If you're a glasses wearer, just taking off the glasses and just putting your hands on your face. Holding your own hand is a subtle thing you can kind of do on the down low if any of these feel a little, weird, or just almost as if you're rubbing lotion on your hands. You can just kind of offer your hands a little massage. This literally does generate oxytocin, the bonding hormone, so it can help us feel better to do an affirming and kind gesture like this, these physical gestures. And finally, giving yourself a hug can feel really good. It can feel weird. Again, these are, whatever you want to do. But gosh, in these pandemic times, if we're not getting a lot of hugs lately, so this might be the time to really generate a little more willingness to experiment with something like this kind of somatic, comforting activity. So whatever works for you. These are just suggestions. Okay? And there's phrases that we'll also work with in the practice. All right, sound good? Let's do a quick practice in self-compassion. And before we begin, I'd like to read a little quote from Parker Palmer, who's a teacher and a teacher of teachers. He says, "Self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer others. Any time we can listen to true self and give it the care it requires, we do so not only for ourselves, but for the many others whose lives we touch." And I know that you're touching a lot of people's lives. So doing this for not just yourself, but for everyone in your life is important practice. So let's begin. I'll start with the bell. And as we get started, just go ahead and find a comfortable place you can sit. You can lie down. You can, move or make yourself comfortable in whatever way you need to before this practice, during this practice. There's no need to be frozen in any kind of position, okay? You're welcome to have the eyes closed or open. If they're open, you might want to just look away from the screen, find a place in the room to rest your eyes,
feeling safe, feeling comfortable as best you can. And see if you can just allow the sound of the bell to be heard foremost in your attention until you can't hear it anymore. So as the sound of the bell fades, allowing the attention to settle into the body, feeling the places of contact that the body is making with your cushion, with your chair, with the floor. Bringing awareness into the body and noticing if there are any places in the body that are holding extra tension where it's not needed. See if you can just let that go as best you can. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but just inviting those places that might be holding to let go. Let's take a couple of longer exhales, if that's comfortable for you. Exhaling can help the body re-regulate. Blowing through the mouth as if you're blowing bubbles or spinning a pinwheel. Allowing the lungs to empty on that exhale. You might feel the belly moving back towards the spine. And just letting the inhale take care of itself. It might be a deeper inhale as a result of that longer out breath. Okay. So as we settle the body and settle the mind, we can always return attention into the body, which is only ever right here, right now. And as we practice a moment of mindful self-compassion, we might just gently invite some acknowledgement of something that is difficult for you right now. This doesn't have to be the most difficult thing in the world. It could be a small thing. It could be a medium thing. Just the general difficulty of everything that's happening. Just taking a moment to acknowledge the truth of that. You can say some phrases to yourself like, wow, this is really difficult. Or, I am having a hard time. Whatever feels true for you. This is a point of acknowledging, an opening of awareness, as if you were inquiring with a friend, saying, what's the matter? Or if a child fell down, you'd kneel down on the ground and say, oh, come here, tell me what hurts. So just acknowledging what hurts, just for a moment. Acknowledging what is difficult and what is painful. And knowing, as we move into the common humanity piece, that you are not alone. There are many people sharing the difficulty of this pandemic, of the violence in our society, of the uncertainty of this moment. Breathing with this awareness, we might say to ourselves, I'm not alone. I am not alone. Other people feel this way. Or, this is what it is to be human. This is what it is to be human. Just acknowledging this, how normal it is to feel this way. And finally, the actual self-compassion piece. You might place hands on the heart, place one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly, as a gesture of kindness, a gesture of comfort, or holding yourself. May I give myself the compassion that I need. May I give myself the compassion that I need, or may I forgive myself, or may I be kind to myself. Breathing with this intention to be kind. It may be all you need. You don't have to have a special feeling. You don't have to have a special experience. May I be kind to myself right now. Allowing the heart and mind to soften towards yourself, to give yourself some room, give yourself a break. Noticing how it feels in the body and mind to just take a moment of time for yourself to rest, to offer yourself the kindness that you very likely offer everyone else in your life, and to become comfortable with the fact that this is not at all selfish. This is, in fact, a generous act, one that you can share with many other people. So as we prepare to close this meditation, just really congratulating yourself for your willingness to practice today, to take this time for yourself, to be present, loving, and kind. If it's comfortable, taking a moment to move fingers and toes, maybe wrists and ankles, feeling the body, feeling the breath, letting some light into the eyes, looking around the room, noticing colors, light, shapes. Being present. So today, as you move around and do all the things that you're doing, a practice you might take with you is to just stop for a moment and take one breath, just letting the air completely empty from the lungs. And the inhale takes care of itself. This, in and of itself, is an act of self-compassion. And if you do it with that attitude, if you do it with that intention, it can be a very powerful practice, one that doesn't take any extra time at all. You're breathing anyway. You can breathe in self-compassion anytime. Okay, so I encourage you to take that practice on. Thank you for spending this time in a self-compassion practice. I'll read the Parker Palmer quote again before we close. Self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer to others. Anytime we can listen to true self and give it the care it requires, we do so not only for ourselves, but for the many others whose lives we touch. Thank you for practicing, and stay safe and we'll see you soon.